Okay, it's the end of September. I read so much this month. Like, I know around booktube, like, people read so much, and so I've never been on that level. I feel like a book a week is like a lot of reading, but I ended up finishing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, technically 7 books this month, and I'm halfway through Crime and Punishment, which I was gonna try to wait to see if I could finish it before the end of the month, but yeah, that's definitely just not gonna happen. So I thought I'd just wrap up what I already have. I didn't read any like bad books this month. All of them were good in their own right, some of them better than others, but I'm so excited to talk about them. And I got like a good variety here. I got some sci-fi, I got like a modern contemporary, I have classics, I have like a psychological thriller. So I'm excited to talk about them. Let's get straight into it. I'm actually gonna start with the book that I finished most recently, and that is this hunk of a guy, Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. Oh my gosh, where do I start with this? Respect to Frank Herbert. Respect to Frank Herbert for doing this. I don't know if I liked this book as much. I definitely actually did not like this book as much as I liked Dune, but I really am so impressed and interested about where he's taking the story, because I did not expect this book. I did not expect it, and it just kind of makes me appreciate kind of more about what he was doing in Dune and how that kind of led into this novel. If you haven't read Dune, there'll probably be some like spoiler talk here, so skip if you're not interested in that. But basically this is 12 years after Dune ends, and we have Paul, who is so different than when we left him at the end of Dune. Just a young ruler just coming into power, full of all these very optimistic views and plans for not only Arrakis, but like the entire universe. And he is not the same person. We are kind of confronted with a lot of more information about this planet. I feel like this is what made this book a little bit weaker than Dune, in my personal opinion. Frank Herbert's weakness is like also his strength, in that he is so detailed and he takes this so seriously, and this world is probably one of the most fleshed out pieces of human imagination that has been put in literature around the world. Like, he has created a society, he has created a whole religion, and this book kind of goes more into this jihad that has been created around Paul's Muad'Dib and all of this kind of religious and political turmoil that comes with being a messiah, or being this kind of chosen one type of character, how that affects him and the world around him. In this book, we find Paul kind of, what's the word? Kind of like defeated. Defeated is definitely the word. He has no control over the people who supposedly worship him as this great messianic figure. He has people from all sides in and out of his inner circle who are trying to take him down, and wow, there was just a lot. There was a lot of information. Like I said, I feel like that's what bogged down the story. Not that it wasn't as action-packed, because I don't really care about that. The book can be just as interesting if, you know, he's not fighting a sandworm. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that Frank Herbert gave us so much more information about this world, introducing Thalaxus and Golas and face dancers, and more information about like how far the spice can take your mental powers. There's just like so much that I was lost. Like, so many times I was like, whoa, slow down. Like, whoa, wait, what? Like, who is that? How does that work? You know, which I feel like is one of the reasons why a lot of people kind of shy away from like more like hard sci-fi. And I get it. I totally understand it, but it was worth the read. There was so many philosophical conversations going on in this book. I'm going to stick by the fact that I think Frank Herbert's characters kind of took a little bit of a back seat to the more bigger discussions that he was trying to push forward in this book. And I kind of felt a little bit similar when I was reading Dune, was that I just feel like the characters are like almost there, but not totally there. Honestly, I felt like Gurney Halleck was like the one with the most personality in the first book, and in this book, I think Princess Ivrel kind of took the cake on being the one with the most oomph. And Chani, don't even get me started on her. Like, I felt she was so weak in the first one. Like, I feel like I barely kind of knew anything about her, and finally I got more of her in this book, which I was really excited about, but stuff happens. I don't want to say too much about that, but I found this just, I gave it 3 stars, but even as time goes on, like, and I'm thinking about it more, I feel like my rating is like maybe slightly going up a little bit, maybe a 3.5. I don't want to say this was like the most amazing thing ever, and I definitely do feel like Dune was better, but I will be continuing the series, which, you know, says what that needs to say. And I thought it was a really good book, and the only things that kind of bogged it down was like a little bit too much information and nothing really to do with the rest of the story, which I thought was really great. So I will be continuing the series, which I found out is Children of Dune, and I had bought, oops, look. So I had bought God Emperor of Dune thinking that it was the next book, because they're like, the numbers are written weirdly on these copies. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that there's like a continuation series by Frank Herbert's son or whatever, but anyway, I'll be continuing that. I don't think I'm gonna be rushing to the next book, just like I didn't rush to Dune Messiah after Dune, but I will definitely be continuing. I just have to go buy the book, and whenever that happens, it happens. But very interesting take on the hero's journey, and pretty impressive. I'll just say that. I can understand why people were kind of disappointed in it as a sequel, though. I can see that. It's just he's taking a unique perspective on, like I said, the hero's journey and this crazy character and the effects of power and all that. So I just find it, it's good. It's good. Okay, the next book I want to talk about, oh my god, did I love this book. I read Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I don't know where I've been for the past 5 billion years. I don't know why I didn't read this a million years ago, but it was amazing. And when I tell you, this is exactly what I needed this month, just in my own like personal life and just in general. Like, this was a soul fulfilling book for me. Our main character, Janie, this was published in when? 1937. And we kind of follow her in the South, Florida, I believe, kind of right after the effects of slavery. I believe the characters are 1 or 2 generations, I think maybe even 1 generation removed from slavery. And we just follow this amazing character, Janie, through her kind of personal self-discovery and look for love and for fulfillment in her life. And I loved it so much. Like, this was the powerful Black woman read that I've just been craving and didn't even know it. When I tell you that Zora Neale Hurston is probably one of the best writers I have ever read, I mean it with my whole soul. She is an absolute master and writes some of the most beautiful prose I've ever read in the English language, hands down. I could not stop marking everything. Everything felt so, oh my god, I was just blown away. Like, every sentence I read, I was like, dang, oh, what the, she just didn't miss, bro. She did not miss. She was one of the writers of the Harlem Renaissance, and when I was doing more research about her life, I found out that I think it was Richard Wright originally criticized this book, basically telling her that it wasn't political enough. You know, a lot of these writers in the Harlem Renaissance, including like Langston Hughes, Richard Wright, and like James Baldwin, and all those amazing people are writing very political books. And this was about a woman, and this was about her personal desires. And for some reason that offended him. A Black woman writing about another Black woman finding love and finding fulfillment within her own soul is political. It is. And you can say what you want. This was amazing. This is exactly what I needed. and I can see why this is an American classic and why it stands up to this day. Absolutely amazing. I think this might be like creeping into my top 10 of all time. 5 stars. Everybody needs to read this book. I don't know why I didn't read this book sooner. This book is so special, and I get it. I get it now. I'm late to the party, but I'm here now, and yeah, I get it. 5 out of 5 stars. I'm just gonna like shove it back here. Okay, the next book, let's talk about this. I read a YA contemporary this month, which is not really my beat, but it is actually September, and that is Suicide Awareness Month, so I felt like an extra draw to pick up something regarding mental health, and this just happened to be a YA, and that is It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini. Ooh, wow. This was absolutely great. I think Ned Vizzini is a hero. This was so bold, especially it being like geared toward young adults. This book also made me cry. 2 books made me cry this month, and one was Their Eyes Were Watching God, and the other one is It's Kind of a Funny Story. This just follows, this is a pretty popular book, I believe, but this follows a 15-year-old named Craig who is dealing with depression and feeling extremely suicidal, so he ends up checking himself into a mental hospital during a particularly bad episode, and kind of meeting all these weird, wacky characters and dealing with his friendships and his family and just a lot of other stuff, and I loved it. Like I said, I feel like this was very bold. Like the first sentence, and this is a YA book, right? The first sentence is literally, "It's so hard to talk when you want to kill yourself." Oh, like it's powerful, and I just so appreciate the story being told, especially that the main character's male, and he's young, and it was, as someone who deals with like mental health problems like a lot of us do, it was so relatable and so honest, and I just am so happy that this book exists for not only myself, but like other people and like younger kids, and not even just younger kids, like anybody who's dealt with these type of feelings. It just was so, like I said, relatable, but also like funny. I just feel like this is important. I just feel like it's an important book, and it like means a lot to me, and it meant a lot to me reading it, and I think it's just a great tool maybe for other people to understand, like neurotypical people to understand what maybe people who deal with mental illness are like going through, or I just loved it, and it felt special. It felt small but big. It just felt good. I don't know, I kind of am grasping for words here, but it was a great read, and unfortunately Ned Vizzini is no longer with us, but he left this like legacy for the world to remember him. But I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. When I just finished reading this, I've cried when I finished this book, and then when I was talking to my sister about the book, I started crying, and I'm not gonna cry again. But yeah, this book just gives me special feelings, and I love it. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars just because a very, very small complaint. I feel like the end was wrapped up just slightly, a little too neatly. It wasn't like super neat, but I felt like it was like just a notch too neat for my taste. But other than that, I just thought it was great, and a great kind of very realistic depiction of depression and suicidal thoughts and mental hospitals. Foe by Iain Reid. So last month, if you watched my August wrap up, I read I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Iain Reid, and I thought it was so fantastic. I was like on this I'm thinking of ending things like train for like the 3 days after I finished it. I wanted to know everything about it. I wanted to know people's theories. I felt like it was so smart. So when I found out that Iain Reid had another book that was also a psychological thriller. I 100% had to get it. I was actually browsing through a bookstore and I picked up this copy to read, and the bookseller actually stopped me and was like, get it, just get it, you have to read it, it's so good. So I took his word on it, and I was slightly disappointed. Like, I don't think it was as good as I'm thinking of ending things, but it was still a great read. This book follows a isolated couple who lives at this farmhouse. They like being alone, they enjoy each other's company, so they say. Their names are Junior and Henrietta, and so they live on this kind of isolated farm and just kind of basically keep to themselves. And then one day this guy knocks on their door and he says he's from a government agency called Outer Moor, and Junior, the husband, is being considered to participate in this kind of space colony expedition thing that the government is doing. And if he eventually gets chosen, it's like an involuntary position, like he has to go, but he just kind of pulls up to this couple's house and lets him know that he's being considered, and that's that. This book is not so much about that aspect of the story, which I felt was like kind of the most confusing. I kind of understand what the colony was or anything, but it is focused on the relationship between Junior and Henrietta and kind of how this news affects their relationship. And this kind of explores the themes of how well you really know somebody, and how well you can know somebody, and also how replaceable we are in our relationships. I felt like this started out really slow. Iain Reid has this very simplistic writing style, which I felt worked so well, and I'm thinking of ending things. And I feel like it did because of the conversations they were having in that book and the atmosphere. I felt like that really built up the novel. While I still enjoyed his writing in this, even though it's very like simplistic and kind of short, I felt like the atmosphere wasn't as strong as it was in I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and it took a while for me to be like, like, what's going on? Like, I feel like maybe a little chunk of this book could have been taken out. I don't know. This is also kind of similar to Dune in the way that I ended up rating it 3. I feel like I went lower. I feel like 2.8 stars, which sounds kind of bad, but now that I'm like thinking about it more, like the score is kind of rising. I thought, yeah, I just could have picked up a little bit faster, because I was kind of like halfway through the book. I was like, okay, where are we kind of going with this? But the ending really picked up, and I thought the twists in this book, because it is a psychological like thriller, were very clever. And I kind of didn't catch on till like the very end of the book. He does the twist in a way that is so subtle that if you're not paying attention, you will actually miss what exactly is going on. And I love when authors like give the readers a little bit of work to do, and I was like, oh, like that was good, that was smart. And I, you know, so it did like pick up my enjoyment to the end. I still think I prefer I'm Thinking of Ending Things, but this was definitely a good read, and apparently it's being made into a movie. Apparently, I don't know when that's gonna come out, but yeah, the ending just was great. I feel like this is worth the read just for the twists at the end. But yeah, I still recommend it. 3 out of 5 stars, maybe even a little bit more. And the last 2 books that I'm going to talk about together because they're actually part of a series. And I finally read some more of my queen this month, CJ Cherryh. Everybody in my family knows she is my favorite sci-fi author. This is going to be 5 books that I've read from her. So this is actually a bind-up, which includes the first 3 books in the Book of Morgaine saga, also known as the Morgaine and Vanier saga, which I feel like is a more accurate description of the main characters in this book. But I read the first 2, and I'm probably going to read the next 2 either this month or next month to finish up the series. So I read Gate of Ivrel, and then I also read Well of Shiuan. This book follows two main characters, basically. One of them is a time traveler. Let's just call her that. She's kind of more than that, but I don't want to go too deep into it. And one of them is this kind of disgraced warrior who has a lot of family turmoil. They kind of end up working together. It's kind of one of those unlikely friendship kind of stories. She ends up kind of claiming him based on this ancient right that she has to kind of make him her servant. So they kind of end up together. They're very different characters. Something that CJ Cherryh does so well is her friendships and like the personal relationships that all her characters have. Fated Sun trilogy also kind of employed this trope of this kind of like unlikely friendship, but both of them are so different and both of them are so good. She is really a master when it comes to personal relationships. What I love so much about her characters is like how delicate all the relationships are. You know, they're all so different, but I can see so distinctly how she changes all of the interactions, whether it's two, you know, estranged brothers, enemies, or friends. It's just, it all works so well. So in this novel, this race of aliens known as the Call have basically abused portals and like time travel, not even viciously, but just like in their selfish stupidity, and have ended up destroying like multiple worlds and universes, and kind of just don't care about how their use of time affects others. So this kind of group comes together and makes it their mission to destroy all of the portals so that they can no longer be abused and used to like destroy or take advantage of other worlds and different people in different times and stuff like that. So that's who our main girl Morgaine is, and she ends up going into this huge kind of battle, but it goes wrong and she ends up kind of being sent forward in time 100 years where she meets Vanier. And like I said, she kind of invokes this ancient right that she has to make him her servant, and they go on this very crazy adventure. Vanier is very distrustful of her. He doesn't really understand her mission. He doesn't understand how the portals work or how it involves him. And she is very mission focused and is pretty much like, you know, beelining what she wants to do. And they just develop this very beautiful friendship that just expands over the book. I do wish I knew more about kind of like the portals and the world that they're in. She is good at world building, like she isn't like horrible at it. It's definitely not as like detailed as like Frank Herbert's Dune or anything, but it's still definitely there. And I was so enthralled by when I was reading this. The characters are so amazing. I love CJ Cherryh. The funny thing is I discovered CJ Cherryh through the Fated Sun trilogy that I got at Barnes & Noble on a blind book date. It was one of those books where they just have the whole thing wrapped up in like brown paper bag and then just have like a small description on the front. And it was fate. It was fate that I picked her up, and because I don't know, like her covers and stuff, which I now have a newfound appreciation for, like these cool kind of 80s sci-fi looks, are just not something that I would like naturally feel attracted toward or like pick up off the shelf. But I'm so glad that I discovered her because they are really amazing books. And I know she kind of has her own kind of small fan base, but her readership has not really reached as wide as some of these other bigger like male sci-fi authors and stuff, but she's just as talented, and it is my personal mission to try to like rally other people to read CJ Cherryh because she's really just that good. I can't wait to finish the series. So yeah, I read some amazing books this month. I'm like loving Crime and Punishment right now, so that's kind of what I'm doing. But I hope something in here interested somebody and maybe give you a recommendation or two. That's all for this month's wrap up, and as always, happy reading, losers.